So we're going to talk about hip mobility in this last week of our baseball series. And why does hip mobility so important in a pitch, right? So when we talk about the kinematic sequence of pitching a baseball, our hips are the first thing to start that sequence. So our hips rotate at, well, a Major League Baseball player's hips rotate at about 700 degrees per second. Then we go up to the trunk and it rotates about 1100 degrees per second. Then the shoulder is about 2200 degrees per second. And then the forearm is 4500 degrees per second, right? So we go from 700 degrees per second to 4500 degrees per second. So if we don't start it off in the right direction, meaning if we don't get those hips moving at a good speed, the forearm is not going to produce the amount of force and rotational speed that we need it to pitch effectively, right? So we want to start it off good by getting good hip mobility. Also, the hip is the largest joint in the body, and it's got some of the largest muscles in the body that surround it, right? So if we want power, we got to make sure that one, that joint is moving well, and two, that those muscles around it can control it and produce all that power. That's why squats and lunges and legs are so important when we work out. But we also want a lot of hip control. If we don't have that hip control, we basically can't use that power and we can't control that power. And so that's the name of the game when it comes to sport and baseball, is being able to control all of this. So how do we screen for hip mobility? So we really have three tests that we use primarily for that hip mobility. The first one is a toe tap test. So we're just seeing how our body can rotate using our shin and our hip to rotate our foot in to see how much shared motion we can do there. Then we do a hip 45 test. It just essentially means seeing how much our hips can rotate. Then we also look at our pelvis. How much can our pelvis rotate? Because if we lose any range of motion in any of those three areas, then we are losing the full lower half of our rotation potential that we could have. So how do we treat those when we do find a hip mobility issue? Soft tissue is an easy one. So we use dry needling, soft tissue, cupping, things like that to try to get those muscles working better so that we can get that full rotation. The other thing is we're chiropractors. We love to adjust. We love to work on mobility, and we're really good at it. So we adjust hips. We also do a lot of resisted motions, trying to get those hips moving. And then the last thing is, again, we love to hit save on a good document after we've done some soft tissue and adjusted. We need to rehab. We need to gain that control. We want to be able to understand what we can do with that new range of motion and what those new muscles feel like. So we have to do some rehab and get control of those hips. So yes, it's the last thing that we're talking about, but hip mobility is a huge proponent or a huge part of the baseball pitch and hitting. It's honestly a big part of all of our athletes. And so we screen it and we treat it really well here at our office.